All right, folks, check it out. Woo! We are ready to start putting the top end on this dog. Yeah, we're going to start out by putting the cylinder studs in. We're going to get those cranked down, and we're going to get the piston measured up. We're going to get the jug installed and the piston installed, and we're going to get all that together. We're going to put the rockers in. We're going to adjust the cylinder head. We're going to adjust everything. We're going to get all the gaskets down. We're going to get everything sealed up. And yeah, we're getting closer. And then we got this gas tank to go right up on here. And an exhaust. And an airbox. And a carburetor. That should about cover it. I'm ready to fire this dog up. Fire it up, let the engines roll. It's time to burn it down. Yeah, you know it, the Black Label Society still rolling. Woo. All right, yeah, check it out. And then over here, yep, there it is. Look at that dog right there. We got the Shasta White, the Honda Shasta White laid down. And we're just getting ready to put the graphics on. Oh, that dog's gonna look nice. Woo! It's looking good. Yes, sir. We're getting there. Yeah. Here we are. We're getting there. So yeah. There we go. There's our cylinder studs. We're gonna be putting those in here shortly. And yeah, you know what time it is. If you're new here, yep, go ahead and subscribe. And ring that bell to get notified of all, and you'll be you won't be notified, but in your inbox you'll be seeing the new videos whenever we drop them from 11 Gallery ATV. Yes, 11 Gallery ATV is gonna be starting this dog up here pretty soon. But without further ado, let's just start putting this top end together so we can get it closer. Let's go. Woo! Here we go. All right, folks. So the first step we're going to do when we're putting this top end on is we're going to have to put the cylinder studs in right here. We got 6 of them. We got 4 larger ones and 2 smaller ones. Obviously, the 2 smaller ones are going to go here where the smaller holes are. Well, you can already see. I forgot and kind of got ahead of myself, and I didn't record it. I apologize, but I already got the clutch in here. All it is it routes down through here. It goes through the cables, through the cable holders right here, and it zips in here. You attach this little guy, slide it through here, and these 2 nuts secure to the bracket that we put on there, and that's about that. And then you just pull it tight and adjust it at the top, and we can get into the adjustments at a later time, but the clutch is already here in case you already noticed. And let's get these studs in there. So what we're going to do is you want to put this raised edge down here is going to go to the bottom, and that is going to be the bottom out how it's going to stop, right? So we're going to blue Loctite these, and a little bit of blue Loctite on the threads here. All right. And why Loctite puts blue Loctite in a red container, I'll never know. But anyway, they do. Make sure the blue liquid though. So it's just going to thread right in here. And we'll just get all of these started real fast. And some more blue Loctite. And then we got one back here. And then we got the one behind here. So if we can get this guy to stay up out of the way. Come on, dude. Alright, and then we have the two smaller ones, and they are going to go with the longer threads to the bottom. They don't have the same raised edge right here as the other ones, but this is the longer thread goes through the base down here. So we're going to blue Loctite these as well. And then what we're going to do to tighten these is we're going to flip this over. We're going to put one of the nuts down this way, and we're going to put the other one over the top. And then we are going to tighten them against each other. And then that way, we can just thread this right on in there. And all we want to do is just snug them down in there. And then you can just back this off. And that's all there is to that. All right, there we are. Now our cylinder studs are down. We need to tighten the other two, the little ones. We need to do the same thing though, but we need different size nuts, of course. So let's get those done. All right, so the same thing. Got to be very careful with these too that you don't drop them in the motor, because now we're kind of exposed here. And technically I probably could fish them out with a magnet or some shit, but we don't want to be trying to fish nuts out of the... We don't want to fish our nuts out of the motor. Out of the bottom end of the motor, because that would suck. Alright folks, cylinder studs mounted. Next, let's move on. Let's measure up this piston and measure up the rings and get her secured on here. Let's move on. Woo! Alright folks, check this out. Next step is going to be to put on our cylinder jug here and the piston. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to come on in here. Obviously we're not by the motor any longer. We are going to make sure, basically I had this cylinder honed and bored by the shop, and it was in such good shape that they only had to go 0.25 over. So yeah, this is a 65.25 millimeter piston, and that's what the bore is. They of course took my piston and made sure and bored this to 0.25 over, which is 65.25 millimeter. 65.00 is the stock bore. So this is only one over. So what we're going to do is the rings have a special ring gap, and obviously everything is probably alright since this is matched to this piston and it's been bored and honed, everything's cool. But they apparently, the shop did not check my rings because, well, they're still closed. So I don't see how they could have. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that we meet the end gap. And before we put it in, chances are it's good, but we're not going to take anybody's word for anything, are we? So there's our rings. Alright, now the two thicker ones are the ones we're worried about. These two down here are going to... These two are going to go on each side of this guy right here. And we'll get into how the ring stuff goes, because you want this guy to be touching like so, and not overlapping like that. That'll be bad. You want it to be butted up against itself right here. But we'll get into that whenever we put these together. So these are the ones we're worried about right here. And these have an R25 on them. So that's a good sign. And this one has an RN25. And this one is a little bit thicker than this one. Alright folks, so let's get these measured up and see about the ring gaps and make sure that everything's cool. It says in here, of course, that these rings are matched to the piston from the factory, of course, and our piston is matched to the bore now by the shop, so all of this should be good to go, but let's give it a check to make sure. And here are the ring gaps. So from the manual, the top and the second are both the same, and it calls for 0.2 to 0.4 millimeters, and that would be 0.008 to to 0.016 inches. So we're going to use the inches. I have both, but we're going to just use the inches because I feel like it. We're American. We're using inches. So anyway, let's do that. So yeah, first step we're going to do. So what we're going to do, don't want to lose these. Those are the Circlips. So the first thing we're going to do is get our piston out, and we're just going to put this down in here. This is the RN, so this would be the bottom ring, but we're just going to put this in here. And then we're going to use the piston to push it down a bit so that it's level. And now we got the gap there. We can measure it. So I got two different sets. This is 0.008 and this is the 0.16. So we could be anywhere in here. But let's measure the smallest one first to see if we can fit that. And that's about right where we are, is the 0.008, because it's a pretty decent fit right there. So I believe that we're right at the 0.008, which is the smallest one. So man, these rings are exactly like they said. So this one's good. I also have this style, and either one doesn't matter, but let's just check them both to see if they're the same. Not really much play in there either, so these are exactly 0.008. So this one's good to go. And now let's measure the top ring. And then we'll push it down just like we did the other one. And get it level. And let's see what we got here. Man, nice tight fit with the 0.008 on that one also. And of course we'll try the other style just to make sure. Nice tight fit with that also. So there you go. We're at 0.008. That is well within spec. We're at the bottom actually, so that's beautiful. So these guys are both good to go. You don't need to measure these. If these are good, then these are good also. We're not going to measure the oil rails and the oil expander. Good to go. All right, so let's get these. Let's get all this stuff out of the way, and we can get these installed onto the piston. And we'll be one step closer to getting this top end together. And yeah, let's rock and roll. So let's get these rings on the piston. All right, folks, here we are. So before we install the rings onto the piston, I am going to install one of the Circlips. First, while there's no rings on there, obviously it makes it easier to work with. And we're going to save this one for when we put the piston onto the connecting rod. And so what I'm going to do is the intake, the piston is going to actually go in this way, because the intake will be the back of the motor. So this will be the left and this will be the right. So I'm going to install the left one first because I'm going to put it in from the right side. And you want this one in the back, so when we put the wrist pin through, this will be the right side. And we put this side through. This one will already be in there. So it's going to go right here. And what I'm going to do is lube it up with some of the Ultra Slick Permatex Assembly Lube in my handy container. And of course, it doesn't matter if you get this stuff all over the place because all of this is going to be inside of there anyway. So, but what you want to do with this is, I like to on these kind of pistons, since the gap is at the bottom, I'm going to put this at 120 up there at the top, and it doesn't matter which side. Just you don't want the gap in the gap down here. So, what I'm going to do is try to get one of them, the groove started here. Sometimes I can do this with my finger, sometimes I can't. Oh, we were in the groove, but I wasn't quite, there we go. Alright, well, this one's being a pain in the ass. I'm going to need some extra finessing tools here. Alright, so the fingers didn't work. So we'll try that again. We'll put it up in here. There we go. Now, let's get that up into the groove. Let's try it with a screwdriver instead. There we go. Now we're almost in there. So then we can come back with the pick. Boom. So that guy's in there like so. And we're 120, exactly where we wanted to be. We're away from the groove there. So yeah, all right, we got circlip installed on the left side. So we're gonna work like this. Since this is our piston orientation, intake, back side of the motor. Again, some of your pistons, you want to make sure you got this in the right orientation though. Some of your pistons will say have an arrow, like Wiseco pistons have an arrow, and they point towards the exhaust. They don't have intake. So be very careful when you do this, that you orientate your piston in the proper orientation. Okay, now we can set all this stuff aside. We're done with the box. We're going to need this guy. So we'll set him aside. We're going to need the wrist pin later. Now we can put our rings on. And the way this is going to work is we're going to start with the expander. And the way this is going to work is you want them to be, you want this guy to be butted up against it like that. You do not want these overlapping like this. You want them to be resting right here, right on the edge. Now, it doesn't matter whether this goes up or down. And here's the diagram that I have from ProX. And this is going to be where all of our ring gaps are going to be. Now, the OEM manual calls for these in a little different position. But I'm going to use this because I've used this before. And this is the exact diagram that came with the piston that we're using and the rings. So we're going to use this orientation. But the OEM one calls for these two gaps right here to be right here, 120 and 120. They don't call for them to be directly at the wrist pin. I'm not sure if that makes any bit of difference or not. I don't think so. That's why we're going to do it this way. So we're gonna put the oil expander gap at the bottom, and that will be on the intake side. So we're gonna put the oil expander gap down here, and then we are going to put the top ring gap over here, the second ring gap over here, and then we're going to put the two oil rails over here and over here. Now, I'm quite sure if you wanted to put the top and the second gap here and here, that would be perfectly acceptable. But I'm going to do it the way this is because this is the piston I got and the rings I got. So this is the way it's going to be. All right, let's get it done. Oh yeah, one other thing to mention. It doesn't matter whether this goes up or down like this, but I'm just going to put it up, seeing how that is the way that the diagram is, but for no other reason than that. But it does not matter which way you put it. So if you've installed your motor and you realize that you put those with those facing down, so be it. Run it, do it, send it. It'll be all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to use some of the Permatex Ultra Slick Assembly Lube, and we're going to hit all of these guys. But we're going to use the easy container. Alright, so this guy is going to go with the gap on the bottom. So we're going to put him right in there. Boom. And we'll make sure this dot right here happens to be 90 degrees, so we'll put it right at that dot. And then next, we'll take one of these guys. And these oil rails, they don't matter which way they go. They don't have a top or a bottom. They are interchangeable. So the diagram calls for the bottom oil rail to be right here. So what we're going to do is just and then we're just going to walk it around. Then you just keep walking it around and make sure that it goes onto the bottom. And there it is. And there's our gap right here. So we can also kind of push that out, right? And then you can snag it. Make sure that you hold the oil rail though. The oil expander. There we go. We're about right here. 120. And once we get all of these installed on here, we'll fine tune it, of course. We'll grab ourselves a little pick and we'll fine tune all the gaps to make sure that everything is where it needs to be, but we're going to try to get it exactly where they are without too much hassle. But anyway, now we put on our top oil rail. And we're going to try to get this gap to be right here. We got the other one on this side. This guy is going to go over here. So again, we get it started. And then we just walk it around and make sure that it's on the top, which it is. And there we are. And now we should be right about here, which we are. We're over here. We'll get these. We'll get it over here. We'll put one on like one side of this guy and one on this side of this little mark. Right now I'm over here, but we'll fine tune it once we get these on. But you definitely want to make sure you got one on the top, one on the bottom, and then you got the oil expander in the center. So now let's put our piston back in the right orientation. And now with these, we got a top and a bottom here, right? So the way this works is this one has an R. I don't know if you can see it or not. There's definitely an R on this one. And this one has an RN. Now the RN is going to be the bottom one. It's going to go in this slot. And the R is going to go into this slot. So the R is on top. The RN is on the bottom. And the writing is going to face up. Alright, so let's get us some assembly lube on this guy. We're going to go top and bottom with these because the other ones had other rings that went with them, so they had more lube. These guys are standalones. So there we go. And now the ProX diagram calls for these two to be staggered 180 degrees apart. And we're going to put the second ring gap over here. And what you want to do with this is get it started in the groove. Okay, get it started in the groove right there. And then just walk it around. And be very careful. While you keep sliding it down and making sure that it goes in the groove. Okay. And intake, so we want to be right here. Now our piston's back where it belongs here, and we're going to take the top ring and we're going to orientate it this direction. So it's going to be directly the opposite of this guy. And then of course you want to make sure you find the mark. Let's just make sure. Did we get that mark down there right? Yes. The RN is facing up. That is exactly what you want. Thank God, because I sure didn't even pay any attention. I just threw that sucker on there. Man, you got to really pay attention. Okay, so now this guy, you want to make sure that you find the R. The R is here. The R is going to go up, and we're going to start him the opposite of the other side. So what you want to do here, I'm going to go start it right here. So I'm going to start it right here in the groove, and we're just going to walk it around. And to make it easier, you want to make sure that this end is not around the piston, because that makes it harder. You want to slide it in and make sure that this kind of wraps around, that goes up over the top. And then it'll be much easier to get it going. There you go. Just walk it around. And there we are. Now our piston's going to face this direction, so we can get all of our gaps lined up now. We're going to double check these before we put the piston in anyway, but here's what we want. We want this guy, we got the gap right here. And then this guy, we have the gap on the other side. And then here, our oil expander, we should have at the intake side, which is the bottom, we should have it right here. So the gap is right here. So we definitely want to put that right there. So now we have the oil expander gap right here and butted up against it. So that's perfect. And now we should have the bottom gap is right here, which is perfect. And we should have the top gap right here, but we have it way over here. So we could just give that a little all right. So now we got it right here. So we're perfect. We got one here, one here. We got the oil expander here, and then we have the second ring here and the top ring here. Perfect. That's what we want. So now we can set this aside. We're ready to install the piston. All right, people, check it out. Here we are. Now that we got the piston rings installed and all the gaps lined up properly, let's get this sucker in here and so we can close up this hole. Yes, all right. So, first off, what we're going to do is we are going to, which I should have done already, but we're going to get rid of this this dealio. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our piston. This is our, in case you were not paying attention earlier, this is our ProX 25 over. It's a 65.25 first bore over. And yeah, I had this the cylinder honed and bored and honed by my shop. And yeah, so what we're going to do, the intake, this piston right here has intake side this direction. So this is the intake side of the motor. The back side of the motor is the intake, so we're going to install it this way. And that is why we installed this piston wrist pin circlip already. And let's just get that on there, shall we? Make sure we don't mess our gaps up here. We got these things gapped up all the way they should be. Alright, so we're going to take the wrist pin and we're going to put a little assembly lube on it. And we're going to take our piston and we're going to put this right in a little bit of the way. And we're going to set it down on here. There we go. And what I was doing was I'm just looking through the hole, right, and lining up the connecting rod. And now we can get that wrist pin pushed through there all the way to the other pin that we have in there. There we go. Let me take a punch and we can push it through the rest of the way so that it locks up against the circlip on the opposite side that we've already installed. You want to make sure that's all the way against the other side. And now we have our circlip groove opened up on this side. So now we can install our circlip on this side, and once again you want to make sure that this opening of the circlip does not match up with the groove in the piston, the bottom of the piston here. So I see that before I do this, there you go. Before you try to put the piston pin circlip in there, cover this up, man, because if you drop it, well, then it's going to go into your motor, and then it's not such a huge deal if you got the proper tools, because we can snag that baby out with a magnet or something, but I don't want to drop it in there. But anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to take this guy, we're going to start it out with some needle nose pliers, try to get it up lined up at the top, because I want the groove up here, the piston, to be up there, right about so. All right, so there we got some of it in. There it is. So that's what you want. You want to make sure it's in the groove all the way around. And make sure the top one's in the groove over here, which it is. All right, so our piston's installed. Our rings didn't really move because it looks like, while we got that rag in there though, let's go ahead and get our dowels in there. Actually, it doesn't matter. Our dowels are going to fall over here too. They're not going to fall off or anything. So, all right, next step, let's get this rag out of here. All right, next we're going to lay down the gasket. And what I like to do is, since the base gasket here is paper, this is a paper base gasket, not a metal one. So we're going to use the old Maxima waterproof grease to help with the sealing process a bit, and also so we don't have to worry about using a razor blade and all that crap when if we take it apart later on down in life. So and then we're going to do the same with our Maxima waterproof grease. We're going to do the same to the bottom of the cylinder jug here before we slap it on there, before we put the gasket on. So we're going to hit this surface. But I'm not going to record all of this because that's kind of redundant. You understand what I'm doing here. So let's get this done. And all right, there we got that all lined up. So we can set this aside for a second. And next we got us our OEM dowel pins straight from Honda. So let's get our dowel pins set up. And again, we'll take our Maxima waterproof grease and line up the dowel pins so they don't get seized up in there. And we got one on this. And we got one on this one. Just want to make sure those go down in there. Boom. We'll get rid of a little bit of this excess grease right here because once again it's going to smash down, and that's we don't want too much grease in there. Alright folks, next we're going to put our gasket down, and we got ourselves a Vesrah top end gasket kit for the 1986-87 Honda ATC 200X. Made in Japan, not China. Very important. These are good quality stuff right here. So yeah, you don't want to get these mixed up right here. This is the head gasket. The metal one is the head gasket. And this is the base gasket right here. So that's why we put the grease down, because we're paper on the base gasket. So let's get that baby secured down. And the base gasket has a bigger slot on this side than it does on this side. And that is to account for this oil flow hole right here. The oil flow hole. Alright, so let's get the base gasket set down there. And of course you want to feed the timing chain through. Be careful not to rip it, and of course we want to go through the piston. Come on, piston, don't be a dick. Alright, so we'll just get our timing chain hooked up there at the top, and we got our piston hanging out down here. We got our gasket all pressed down. Now comes the time when you want to double check your ring gaps to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. Okay, so we have the bottom ring, the second ring gap, the second oil ring is right here. That's where we want it to be. The top oil ring gap is right about here. And you have to take my word for it, because that's where I say it is. So that's where it is. It goes right here. Once again, the Honda directions call for these to be 120, like up here and up here. And the ProX says to put them directly right here. So I did a compromise. I put one right here and one right here. And that's plenty. As long as you're just far apart from each other, good to go. They say 120 degrees. I'm more than 120 degrees, so we're good to go. And now we have right here is our bottom oil rail. And right here is our top oil rail, and right here at the intake is our oil guide, and it is not overlapping, and better make sure of that. It's not overlapping. Not overlapping, and right at the bottom, so we're good to go. So guess what we can do now, folks? We can plop the jug on there. Woo, we're getting there. All right, so what we're gonna do is we've already assembly lubed up the rings when we installed them, but we're gonna try to hit them a little more while we're sitting here. And we're going to drop a little on the crank here. And down on the cam chain. Okay, now we want to get some right in the jug. And then, of course, let's flip it over and get that all up on the top side too. There we go, we're all lubed up in there. So now we can compress our rings in and drop this sucker down. Of course, we need to feed our timing chain through and make sure the chain guide comes up through as well, and make sure the chain guide comes up through as well, and make sure it doesn't get hung up. So let's get this done. All right, so the first step we're going to do is we're going to feed our timing chain through. And then we can get a few of the bolts started. If we get it up through here and off of there, and you just did a dick move, didn't you? Yes. All right, so now let's put our timing chain, hook it back up. Okay. Now, what we're going to do here is get this picked up here, get the piston started, make sure that all the rings get compressed in there. Oh, here we go. That did not do what I wanted it to do. It turned the piston. Oh, you fucking whore. Alright, so let's try that again, shall we? So I put it back up into top dead center so the piston doesn't move. I put a socket on the side here, so if the piston starts to drop in like it did, it'll catch down there and it won't go back in. So let's try that again. See if we can't do a better job this time. So let's get it started. Okay. Okay, now the piston's cruising up through. Okay. There we go. Make sure that the timing chain guide is coming through.
That's what we were hung up on. We're good to go now. So our piston's still kind of hanging out up here. It's not flying off the handle yet. Here we go. We're cruising through. We're coming down. Boom. And just like that, that guy came right down onto the dowel pins and everything like butter. Woo woo. And now here, I'd normally leave this on here, but I'm gonna have to wipe it off because I'm in my living room. Actually, this is my rec room. I'm in my rec room, my recreation room. What better place for a 200X build than in my recreation room? Yeah. So I'm gonna have to wipe the top of this off because we still gotta wait for the valves. And I don't know if anybody of you saw my post. I posted on YouTube, but we got a bent valve. So that's not cool. And yeah. So I'll show you some of that. Oh, well, guess what, folks? We have a problem. Yeah. Check this out. If you watch this as you spin it, do you see it? I should have noticed that when we were doing this. Check this out. It's bent. So, we are not going to install the valves. We are just fuckered. We're going to have to get a new valve. Alright folks, next we got our chain guide that's going to go right down in here, and this guy right here is going to hook into these two little notches on here. So let's get us a bit of assembly lube up on this guy right here. And then it's going to go right down in here like so. You want to make sure your chain is between both of these guides. Here's the other guide and here's our new one. So it's going to sit just like that. And you want to make sure it doesn't, it can't flip up this way, so it's in place. So yeah, that's pretty secure, going nowhere. Woo! This is exciting. We are cruising right along. I can't wait. Pretty soon we're going to have the exhaust up on here. We're going to have the intake boot. We're going to have the carburetor. We're going to have the gas tank, which we already saw painted. We'll have to get into that. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Next video, we're going to assemble the rocker arms. We're going to get the cylinder head all done. We're going to get the cylinder head cover assembled. We're going to get all that stuff taken care of. And we're going to pop this head on. We're going to get all this stuff on. We're going to fire it up. Woo! So yeah, make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you ring the bell. Bing, bing. You don't ring the bell. Click it. Click the bell. Click the all notifications, and you will get in your inbox every time we drop a new video. You'll see it sitting there when you come to YouTube. You'll see, hey, 11 Gallery ATV, new video. 11 Gallery ATV has put out a brand new spanking video that's farther into this build. We're getting there. It's taking a couple of things to get her done, but yeah, we need to wait on some valves and we'll get her done. All right, you know what time it is. Peace out, Girl Scouts. Woo!